In the annals of history, certain figures stand out not for their virtues, but for the darkness they brought upon their nations and humanity. One such figure is Idi Amin, the notorious dictator who ruled Uganda with an iron fist from 1971 to 1979. Amin's reign of terror earned him the epithet, the Butcher of Uganda, and his legacy continues to haunt the collective memory of the nation. Born in 1925 in Koboko, Uganda, Idi Amin rose through the ranks of the British colonial army, eventually becoming a general. In 1971, he seized power in a military coup, overthrowing the government of Milton Obote. Initially hailed as a hero by some, Amin's true nature soon revealed itself in the most horrific ways imaginable. Amin's regime was characterized by brutality, oppression, and rampant human rights abuses. Dissent was met with violence, dissenters were silenced, and opposition was crushed without mercy. Political opponents, intellectuals, journalists, and anyone perceived as a threat to Amin's rule were targeted for persecution, imprisonment, and often execution. Perhaps the most infamous chapter of Amin's reign was the persecution of Uganda's ethnic minorities, particularly the Acholi, Lango, and other ethnic groups from the northern regions. Amin's policies of ethnic cleansing and persecution resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, creating a climate of fear and distrust that lingers to this day. During this in-depth investigation, we will start on a quest to unravel the various layers of terror that marked Amin's regime. We will delve deeply into his life and the unspeakable crimes that were committed during his totalitarian reign. Idi Amin's roots may be traced back to the unassuming town of Koboko, which is located in the northwest region of Uganda. It is thought that he was born in the vicinity of the year 1925. However, certain dates have not been established. During his formative years, he progressively rose through the ranks of the British colonial army, finally becoming one of the first Ugandans to earn the rank of major in the country's armed forces. However, very little is known about his formative years. The culmination of Amin's thirst for power occurred in January 1971, when he was responsible for the execution of a military coup that resulted in the removal of President Milton Obote from office. This occurred when Obote was in Singapore for a Commonwealth summit. The first responses to Amin's revolution varied from joy to cautious optimism. Many Ugandans were hoping that the endemic corruption and nepotism that plagued Obote's rule would finally come to an end. On the other hand, these expectations were quickly dashed as Amin's actual nature started to become apparent. As soon as Amin took power, he started a rule of terror against people he thought were against the state. People who spoke out against the government, like political rebels, thinkers, and journalists, were arrested, tortured, and killed without a reason. The scary truth was that thousands of people went missing without a trace, and Amin's strict rule made it hard to figure out what happened to them. His systematic persecution and slaughter of ethnic minorities, notably the Acholi and Langi tribes, whom he saw to be challenges to his grasp on power, was one of the most terrifying features of Amin's reign. He was particularly concerned with the Acholi and Langi tribes. Estimates claim that hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives as a result of Amin's harsh government, which earned him the terrible nickname of the Butcher of Uganda. The death toll that may be attributed to Amin's tyrannical administration is enormous. Amin's brutality had no boundaries, as shown by the fact that victims were reportedly fed to Nile crocodiles, and others were subjected to unimaginable torture inside the dreaded walls of the State Research Bureau, which was Amin's feared secret police agency. By the iron hand of his reign, women were exposed to extensive sexual abuse, children were left without parents, and whole towns were annihilated. Other victims included children. Amin's control over Uganda turned the country into a dystopian theater of horror, where every kind of resistance was met with rapid and ruthless retaliation immediately after it was spoken. Individuals who were seen to be a danger to Amin's rule, including political opponents, intellectuals, and anybody else, were methodically sought for elimination. According to estimates, a continuous campaign of state-sanctioned massacres resulted in the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives of innocent people. As a consequence of the pervasiveness of ethnic prejudice under Amin's dictatorship, minority groups, notably the Acholi, Lango, and other ethnic groupings hailing from Uganda's northern regions, were subjected to unrelenting persecution. A great number of people were subjected to arbitrary detention, torture, and death merely based on their ethnic identification, which sent the whole country into a vortex of terror and despair. Over 80,000 people were compelled to leave Uganda over a span of 90 days after Amin issued a decree that ordered the deportation of Uganda's Asian population in 1972. This was a horrific show of bigotry on Amin's part. In addition to causing significant economic upheaval, this act of ethnic cleansing destroyed long-standing relationships with the Indian population, inflicting an indelible scar on Uganda's social fabric. This act of ethnic cleansing brought about considerable economic damage. In order to stifle opposition and preserve power, Amin's security apparatus, most notably the State Research Bureau, or SRB, did not face any consequences for its actions. Torture and terror were used in this process. The practice of arbitrary imprisonment, enforced disappearances, and extrajudicial executions became widespread, which contributed to the creation of an atmosphere of dread that crushed any form of protest. The aggression of Amin spread beyond the boundaries of Uganda, culminating in the disastrous invasion of his dictatorship into Tanzania, which was located in close proximity to Uganda in 1978. This incursion was the cause of the Uganda-Tanzania War. The battle, which was fueled by Amin's expansionist aspirations, resulted in enormous destruction and loss of life, and it finally culminated in Amin's removal from power and removal from the country. Despite the fact that Idi Amin's death marks the conclusion of a terrible chapter in Uganda's history, the impact of his murderous reign continues to echo across the collective memory of the country. Amin, the notorious dictator who governed Uganda from 1971 to 1979, was responsible for severe violations of human rights, political persecution, and massacres, which earned him the terrible title, the Butcher of Uganda. Amin's tenure lasted from 1971 until 1979. Amin was forced to live in exile in a number of countries, including Saudi Arabia, when he was removed from office in 1979 by Tanzanian troops and Ugandan exiles. His host nation has largely sheltered him from the consequences of his actions, despite the fact that several requests have been made for his extradition to face prosecution for his illegal activities. It is not known when exactly Idi Amin passed away, since his death took place in Saudi Arabia, where it was shrouded in mystery. It has been reported that he died in the year 2003, but other accounts claim that it occurred in the year 2001. A period of time that was marked by oppression and cruelty came to an end when he passed away, regardless of the exact moment of his passing. The death of Amin did not offer closure to those who had been affected by his reign, nor did it completely remove the wounds that were inflicted upon Ugandan society. Uganda's political landscape and social fabric continue to be shaped by the scars that were inflicted during his rule. These wounds serve as a stark reminder of the risks of unbridled power and the ongoing pursuit of justice. The lessons that were gained during Amin's oppressive leadership continue to be as relevant as they were when he passed away, even though his death may have marked the finish of his tale. The fact that he passed away highlights how important it is to ensure that leaders are held responsible for their acts, to advocate for human rights, and to protect against the growth of authoritarianism. The country of Uganda is struggling with the complexity of memory, reconciliation, and historical reckoning as it reflects on the death of Idi Amin. His demise may provide some people with a feeling of closure. Nonetheless, the wounds that his rule has left behind serve as a sobering reminder of the precarious nature of democracy and the ongoing fight for freedom and justice. As we retell the dark era of Idi Amin's administration, we are faced with the harsh reality of unfettered power and the depravity of the human race. The legacy he left behind serves as a disturbing warning of the dangers of tyranny and the unwavering need to protect basic human rights. Hope that the memories of those who were killed by Amin will live on as a tribute to the resiliency of the human spirit and as a solemn plea to never again let such crimes take place without being stopped. If you like this video, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more information like this.